I've always been meaning to do a slightly more in-depth view of this deck for a while. The kind of video that's maybe not really interesting to the regular viewer, but it might be interesting to people who would like a copy, still would like a copy, or already have it. So it's going to be a slightly longer video. I've spent loads of time trying to do these short videos to kind of keep people's attention, and after a while it kind of gets a bit tiring. And once in a while I would like to just do a video without having to stress about all that fucking speed stuff. So I try to chill out a wee bit in this one. So I wanted to make a video to clear up a misunderstanding about the Neon Pam we've received over the years. It's actually not that important in the grand scheme of things, which of course is most likely why I've never actually addressed it very much until now. Truth be told, we've received more compliments than we have negative comments, but I think some of the misunderstandings are worth addressing. And if memory serves me, it's really just one misunderstanding, and that's that I lifted Pam's work, just copied and pasted it and just coloured it, which is not true. Well, the neon colours are by far the most obvious change to the Waite Smith original. I think it should be understood that every single card has been completely redrawn. It's not simply taking Pam's illustrations and colouring them differently, nor is it just a Waite rip. But at the same time, I can understand why it appears that way. At a glance, this is still Pam's work. The figures are still in their exact poses, and generally wearing the exact same costumes as the original Waite Smith deck. Often their hair is styled the same way, and the backgrounds are similar to the original. However, this is not always the case, and as we go through the deck, I'm going to do a wee bit of a walkthrough and try to explain it as only I can, as the best as I can do. You will begin to see, I think, that while it is similar, it's not simply a complete rip of Pamela's work. In fact, to my knowledge, we've never produced a deck of cards that is a complete rip. We've always tried to use that as kind of like a base, and then we come up with the designs and illustration and try to make a themed version of that particular design. So we tend to adapt the work, make it more themed toward what our project is based on. Well, the Neon Pam is the closest we've ever gotten to producing a replica of the Waite Smith. It is still very much, it's still very different with its neon colours and UV reactive inks, which later in the video I'm going to show the cards under UV. And so it's much more than simply Pam's illustrations coloured differently. Now it sounds like this has got under my skin, right? And you know, a few years ago it did a little bit, but I didn't really address it because I didn't really see the point. But at the same time, you know, when you, I don't know. I just thought it should have been addressed. But anyway, So I spent many months redrawing this deck, redrawing every card from scratch with the aim of trying to clean up the block print look of the original. That in itself is not particularly new, with decks like Mary Hansen Roberts Universal Waite, the Radiant Rider Waite, and others already covering this ground, so it's not like we're doing anything very different. We're just redrawing it. So it's not a new thing we were attempting when I drew our vision of the figures for the Neon Pam. Rather we wanted our own interpretation of the figures, mainly because we wanted a stripped down version to allow the colour to shine through, because the kinds of colours we were going to be working with needed to really shine. Promoting decks of cards is always hard work when you're an independent artist. You have to know how to both create the product and then promote it and get it out there in front of your potential audience. And you have to be equally good at both. I mean, yeah, you can hire professionals to do the marketing part. And maybe that's something that we might consider in the future, but at the time we really just had ourselves to rely on. And by the time we released the Neon Pam Tarot, we already had the Blacklight Tarot and the Psychedelic Space Tarot, which were very different again. So by the time Neon Pam came along, it's like this new thing was kind of like old. But so I think bringing out a neon deck that was basically a cleaned up version of the classic Waite Smith after these two decks, rather than introducing it first, meant that it never quite got the attention that it deserved, and I still think it deserves. That being said, I think it all happened exactly as it was meant to. Our Blacklight Tarot became a success, and it came out at just the right time. Had that deck not worked, it's doubtful that I would still be making cards today. So the Neon Ink UV reactive decks are a bit more costly to produce. There's no real way of getting around that. And I suppose that's the main reason we never returned to doing any more of that kind of deck. But maybe in the future we may. I'm not 100% on that. I think the past while I've been far too focused on the short videos for Facebook and Instagram, which basically demand very short videos. But I like to think the idea of a long form, and I think I like the idea of long form, and I think for this kind of topic, a longer video is ideal. The big challenge is having enough to say for about 10 minutes, as normally I tend to let the pictures and the artwork do the talking. So I'm going to start in here. The line work on the Emperor's clothing, along with brightening the colours, allow the artwork to be more vibrant. We made the conscious decision to try to colour everything for the most part, because under a UV lamp everything white automatically turns to blue. So the Emperor's beard here is white, changed it to ginger, orange, really for the UV light effect. But of course, this rule of trying to color everything and making sure every area of white is kind of removed for the most part. Was broken from time to time, as we can see here in the Hierophant especially. Generally speaking, the colour choices were not random or by accident. We carefully chose each colour with the idea that under a UV lamp it also had to look pretty good. If you think about it, there are close to 80 cards in the deck, so there will always be some that work much better than others. Again, for the lovers, taking out a lot of the line work here in the original meant that the colour could really shine through on the angelic figure especially. Like I was saying, with the decision to leave out a lot of the white in the artwork, the Chariot card is a good example of this. Most of the white here was changed to yellow to take advantage of the great UV effect. Yeah. This is strength. Another good example of clearing away some of the line work. The Hermit in the Neon Pam is more simplified. The Lantern 2, while similar, is still quite different than that of the original Waite Smith Tarot. I think out of all of the cards in the Neon Pam deck, I think the Wheel of Fortune is my favourite. The colour combination for me works really well. I think it's clear too that our angelic figures in the card are redrawn. I don't know if you can see that, but I redrew those figures here. Yeah, I'm not saying it's any better, but I've tried to sort of tidy them up a bit. Yeah. Let me see, where are we now? Justice might be one of the clearest depictions, art-wise, in the deck. Removing some of the line work again opens the card up to colour. I think for the Waite Smith purists out there, our artistic interpretations of the card might be crossing a line, but I just don't really think so personally. Even if that were the case, Pamela's work will always exist, regardless of the artistic interpretation of others. However, I like to think that she would enjoy seeing the various artistic interpretations of her cards. Hanged Man. I just wanted to show you something here. So, the Hanged Man's face, I feel, is a bit more defined. Perhaps not drastically so, but his hair has more form, and his tunic is more simplified. Not everyone will be interested in a more simplified look to the cards, but again, the purpose was to make the imagery more clear, showing the colours, allowing the colours to shine through. The Death card. Let me see. A good example of making some of the cards a bit more clear again is the Death card. As we see here, I've tidied up the bottom part of the card. Compared to the original, I really feel that the Neon Pam simplifies the scene. In the original you can see the characters, but it is, a little muddy, I feel. With the waterfall in the background of the original, it is a bit hard to make out the actual fall. And of course, with a little highlight of colour, we emphasise the scene of the sunrise. Similar to the scene in the moon card, but the moon is replaced in the death card with either a sunrise or a sunset. There's temperance. There's a devil. The tower. So the tower features two figures falling from a burning building, a burning tower. I felt it was important to redraw the figures to kind of rescue them from the darkness of the background. So you see here, it's always difficult drawing black on black, and a lot of the details can get lost in translation. So here I've just tried to like redraw her a bit better, the crown and stuff. It's just our interpretation of it, really. I've got to cover these up here. Yep, for the YouTube censorship. It's a moon. Let me see. The sun, judgment, and the world again. Again, got to cover this up for the sake of the YouTube censorship nonsense. Alright, so the world card, well, it is redrawn like every card in the deck. The original was reasonably clear. I'm not the greatest drawer of animals, but I did have a go. Oh, sorry, I did have a go at this. And likewise with the lion here. I think my attempts at the lion and the ox suffice, if you know what I mean. I'm not the best at making these kind of videos, but and the lighting could be better, but Ace of Cups, 2, and the 3, again clearing some of the line work in Pam's original. I just took the essential lines, which I felt were the essential lines, and just coloured the whole thing again. The 4 of Cups, 5, and the 6. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that a few of the ideas from our groovy Waite or tripping Waite may have crossed over here in the 6 of Cups with the flowery pattern on the boy. I think it's important just to stress that Neon Pam has only ever been an artistic interpretation, and as I've mentioned a few times, if you prefer the original Waite Smith artwork, it'll probably always be there for you. It's just this is just our own interpretation, pretty much. All redrawn, as you can see. And so because it's redrawn, there will be differences. It's like unavoidable. Okay, so 7 of Cups. The 8. And the 9. I feel that taking out the line work and the figures tunic helped this card. Again, that's my subjective opinion on it. But I feel it opens up to more colour, simplifies it. And likewise with here too. It's just, I feel it kind of just makes it more simplified. It's a 10 of Cups. The Page. The Knight. And the Queen now. Let me see. The Queen. Some cards benefit more from the cleanup than others, and one card in particular is the Queen of Cups. I think the bright, distinct colour choices we came up with allowed all of the varying elements to stand out. With the exception of the beach stones, we were limited to 7 colours in the deck, which meant that we had to make bold choices on what colours should go where. At the same time, I felt that colouring the beach stones a basic blue or green wouldn't have looked very interesting. Instead, I wanted to make it appear that it was part of her clothing kind of thing. It would sort of blend into it. Like her cloak was merging with the stones for no other reason than I thought it would look interesting. And that I had again very limited colour palette to begin with. Another example of it not being an exact replica of the Waite Smith. The King of Cups sports long hair and a beard. He also wears a seahorse brooch, if you can see it there. I made the decision to remove the whale in the background, so he's not actually in ours here. At least I think that's what the original Waite Smith intended it to be. I just felt that maybe it wasn't necessary. So Ace of Pentacles, the Two of Pentacles, 3, 4, 5. So another card which has greatly benefited, I feel, from simplifying the line work is the Five of Pentacles. I've always felt that the background was a bit too muddy. I think maybe the intention was for it to be sort of like pebble dash, which can be seen in old buildings, church buildings, for example. But I felt that in our version, a stonework type effect would look good for this card. The man is still in crutches, and he still has his little leprosy bell. I think they still look like the outcasts they were meant to be in the original Waite Smith Tarot. That's just my view on it. 6 of Pentacles, 7, 8, and 9. 9 of Pentacles still features a lady walking through her garden. Her grapevines are full of grapes, and her falcon rests on her leather glove. Not much has changed in our version. We've even kept the snail. You see the wee snail. The pattern on her clothing is still very similar, but again, redrawn in our version. You can kind of see it there. 10 of Pentacles. This is one of my favourite cards that turned out for the Neon Pam. Generally, I'm rather proud of how this 10 of Pentacles has turned out. However, I can be critical, and cleaning up the figure in the foreground was a bit of a nightmare, and I regret I didn't have a look at what some of my peers had done regarding the old man's throne. It's, I don't know. Still looking at it, even so, it just even now it's difficult to decipher. Truth be told, I didn't look at anyone else's work, and I dare say the deck may have benefited if I actually had. In the end, I changed the throne. I changed the throne to something a bit more basic. At the time I couldn't really decipher it, and it's possible I've deciphered it a bit better in different decks of cards since. That being said, throwing aside, I think the cleanup in this card helped it immensely. Especially in, like, you know, things like tunics and things. You know, I think it's cleaned it up a bit. It's just my opinion. Page of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles. Now, the Queen of Pentacles is rabbit. Is almost unrecognizable in here. In our version, I tried to kind of bring it out a bit more. So it comes into view a bit more in our version, but remains a little hidden in the original. We also felt like it would be nice to highlight the various fruit etchings. So in here on her throne, with her representing abundance, we felt it was important to emphasize these a little more. So in our version, as you can see, oranges, pears, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, I think it highlights it a bit more. So here's the King of Pentacles. King of Pentacles, I feel, benefits from a lot less heavy line work. So as you see in our one, it's a wee bit more simplified. Opening up his grape-themed costume a bit more. In the original, his throne was almost pure black, as you see. But so too was his surroundings, his throne, his clothing. Again, because we wanted to make a really bright neon deck, we needed minimum line work. That's kind of how I felt about it. So you're able to see here, it comes out a bit more with the leaves and different things. Ace of Swords. Two of Swords. 3. 4. 5. Drawing these images. Drawing these images for a deck was fun. It was fun to do, I have to admit. Like the 5 of Swords here, the faces, the hair. At times, the faces, the hair, at times are quite similar, but you can tell that they were not just lifted from the original, I believe. I think you can tell. However, for those who believe that that was the case, thank you for the compliment. Pam Smith's art is truly unique and special. So the fact that you may have thought I lifted it directly, that's a nice compliment. 6 of Swords. The 7 of Swords. Now, our details are a little similar, but again, you can kind of tell that. You can kind of tell that it's not the exact thing. It's my interpretation. So I can't deny that they are similar, but again, I think when you look a little closer, you'll understand there are still differences. Like the tints here in the 7 of Swords, we try to stay reasonably faithful to the original, but even if you were trying to recreate the art verbatim, there would always be little differences. Like with the 8 of Swords here, the castle is more or less the same, although we've put a little more detail into it, whereas the original had a more vague and perhaps maybe a more mysterious feel to it. Our version has the windows and different things. Nine of Swords. 10. There's a page. Here's a Knight of Swords. The Queen of Swords. King. Yes. 2. 3 of Wands. The 4. With the 4 of Wands, the card is similar, but we wanted to define the characters a little more. So here's the originals, and here's our own version. Even the guys further down there. We also felt it was important to sort of detail these a bit more, clarify them a little bit more. These are symbols of abundance and fruit. The 5 of Wands. Six of Wands. The 7. The 8. That's usually the simplest card in the whole deck to draw. Very simple. That one is, doesn't take too long. Mainly because I think there's no figures in it. It's just wands, basically. Again, with the 9 of Wands, we removed some of the line work. These areas here. I cleaned it up a little bit. And remove some of the line work from our version. It just opens up the colors, really. And if you already own both the original Waite Smith and the Neon Pam, you can see for yourself that there's varying differences between the two. Like on the page of Wands here, the lizards are completely redrawn here, and it, the pattern it carries across over into the Knight and the King of Wands. So as you can see here, it's a new pattern I've created. There's the Queen. The King of Wands stays reasonably the same, although our version features a necklace with a lion's head. Now, I don't really know what this was supposed to be quite honest. And, maybe a weight has gone into it, I'm not 100%. But I felt that, trying to recreate it, I decided to just do a lion's head, because there's lions in the throne anyway, so I thought it would kind of work. Like I say, I'm unsure what the original was supposed to be, but I felt that if it were to be something that a lion might be good choice. I think it turned out pretty alright. There we have it, folks. These last few cards are some of the same cards over again, just coloured slightly differently than those in the main Neon Pam deck. I think it's important to stress again that these cards are UV reactive, meaning they shine under a UV lamp. How many times will you actually use such a feature? That's up to you, but I think it makes the cards a little unique, a little special. I like to think of the UV feature as Oh, better cover that. I like to think of the UV feature as a little bonus to the cards. The cards are a nice bright neon colour regardless if you want to use the UV lamp or not. So if you ever wondered if the Neon Pam was just a quick copy and paste job, a rip of the Waite Smith with a dash of colour, I hope this video might have given you a bit more of what actually went into creating the deck, a bit of the thought process, the colour choices, etc. As always, thank you for watching, and if you like this kind of video where I go a little into the cards I've illustrated, please comment below and let me know. It helps me understand what type of videos you may be interested in, and I can make some more in the future. Under a UV lamp, the Neon Pam really shines, with each card taking on a nice, vibrant glow, giving the cards a unique look. I like the idea of this being a hidden, or rather optional effect that always accompanies the cards without it being essential to the deck. We're told, and I tend to agree, that the cards look equally great without the need of a UV lamp, as the neon colours by themselves bring a hopeful vibrancy to the cards. To my knowledge, I don't really believe there are other decks out there that have as many neon colours as ours does. I might be wrong about that, but I don't think so. As I mentioned earlier, Pantone neon inks are expensive, and the more you have in your project, the more it's going to cost the overall production of the decks. So there's an incentive to not have so many neon inks in the deck, but with having the full range of 7 neon colours, it allows the deck to be more visually interesting. I believe there are probably other neon decks out there besides ours, but I don't believe they are UV reactive. I might be completely wrong about that, so if you know any decks that are UV reactive, let us know in the comments section below. In fact, if you know of any other neon decks out there that are not produced by us, Tarot Collectibles, I'd love to know. So I hope you've enjoyed this more lengthy exploration of the Neon Pam. Do you own a copy yourself? Do you like it? Or even if you don't, let us know in the comments below. It always helps us understand what people like or don't like, and it guides us when we consider future projects.